Hey everyone, it is Friday, August 15th. You are listening to the Mo News Podcast. I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts. We read all of the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. As you could tell, it is just me today. One thing I wanted to mention before we get to the headlines, we're keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Erin this weekend. It is continuing its path west on the way to becoming a major hurricane this weekend and the first hurricane of the 2025 Atlantic season. One forecast that I saw late Thursday showed the storm becoming a major Cat 3 hurricane by Sunday, but right now it's looking like it will stay off the coast of the United States. To the headlines, starting in Alaska, everything you need to know about today's summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. And could Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky be on the next plane to Anchorage? To the economy, first it was eggs, then steak. Are vegetables the next food that could see a huge price increase? I'll walk through some new data. And it looks like the group that's really struggling in the current job market, young men with college degrees, I'll explain. Overseas, Southern Europe, dealing with a massive heat wave and wildfires. I'll tell you where and when the heat could break. Back here in the U.S., the Department of Health and Human Services is reviving a child vaccine safety panel. It is something that anti-vaccine activists have been calling for. In sports, 45-year-old Venus Williams got a wild card for the U.S. Open for singles. And are you ready for it? Everything you need to know about Taylor Swift's appearance on Travis and Jason Kelce's New Heights podcast, including how she stays sane amid all of the noise on social media. Plus, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating. The big news today, the summit between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska. It will be happening at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. This is the first time a president has invited the Russian leader to private talks in the United States since 2007, when George W. Bush was president. Trump's goal here, end the 3.5-year war that started when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. So here are some new details about how it's going to go today. The summit is expected to start at about 11:30 a.m. local time, which is about 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, with a one-on-one conversation between Trump and Putin. There will be interpreters present. This is according to a Putin aide. And then they will continue talks over a working lunch, which will include more people. The Russian delegation includes Putin, the foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, the defense minister, the finance minister, and a special economic envoy. Still not entirely clear who's going to be there from the American side. As we've been reporting all week, Trump has been trying to lower expectations, saying that this is a feel-out meeting, a listening exercise to see if Putin is serious about pursuing a peace agreement. At the same time, though, the president saying that if this meeting goes well, there will be another meeting between Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who, as we've been reporting, was not invited to this first meeting. Here is President Trump on Thursday.
I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great.
Trump even said that if the meeting goes well, he could call Zelensky right away and say, come to Alaska. He said that would by far be the easiest way for the three leaders to hold talks. But at the same time, he said there's also a chance things may not go well. He put the odds of failure at 25% and said that he would return to Washington immediately in that case. We are expecting some type of press conference, either with Trump and Putin or Trump by himself following the summit. Now to the economy, where we're having a bit of tariff whiplash. So if you remember earlier this week, we mentioned that prices had been holding relatively steady despite those new tariffs on countries around the world. But now a sign that perhaps costs will be going up. The Producer Price Index, which is a measure of prices paid to wholesalers, came in hot, rising 0.9% in July, which is the biggest gain in 3 years. It's way above expectations. So unlike the Consumer Price Index, which we talked about earlier this week, which measures what we pay at stores, the PPI, the Producer Price Index, looks at the costs of those things as they make their way through the production cycle, which is why this is a good measure of what kind of prices we could be seeing in stores in the future. So beyond the top line number, one thing that really stood out to me was the price of vegetables. Fresh and dried vegetables jumped 39% from June to July, foreshadowing a pretty big price hike at the grocery store. This is the biggest month-on-month increase for fresh vegetables since March of 2022, when we saw inflation really starting to heat up. One of the big reasons here, tariffs. According to the USDA, more than a third of vegetables are imported into the United States. Phil Kafarakis, who is the president and CEO of the Food Away from Home Association, tells Axios that not only are tariffs driving up prices, but he also says that when the harvest cycle kicks in, there may not be enough farm workers to pick all of the domestic produce, meaning in another few months, the quality and then the capacity of what we're able to bring in could be a problem. So he is predicting that prices will soar to keep demand in check. And I normally wouldn't want to bore everyone with all of the economic data recently, but you guys know that I cannot resist doing a story about grocery prices. Time for the speed read from the Washington Post. The Department of Health and Human Services announced Thursday that it is reviving a long-defunct task force aimed at improving the safety of childhood vaccines. That is something long sought by anti-vaccine activists. The Washington Post says the resurrection of the panel could be a step to achieve HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s longtime goal of upending the current childhood immunization schedule, which recommends which shots children receive and when. The task force will make recommendations focused on developing and refining childhood vaccines that result in, quote, fewer and less serious adverse reactions. The first report will be sent to Congress within 2 years. The head of the National Institutes of Health says, quote, by reinstating this task force, we're reaffirming our commitment to rigorous science, continuous improvement, and the trust of American families. So Congress in 1986 mandated the creation of this task force. It was part of legislation to address childhood vaccine safety. It was disbanded in 1998 and released a report that year recommending an expansion of research on vaccine safety and also surveillance of injuries. Now, fast forward, Children's Health Defense, which is an anti-vaccine group founded by Kennedy, funded a lawsuit filed against Kennedy in May, looking to compel him to reconvene the task force and submit reports to Congress every 2 years. The lawsuit claims that the schedule included too many vaccines and that the increase in vaccine dosage correlates with the rise of autism. We should note that there is overwhelming scientific evidence that found no link between immunization and autism. So the concern now isn't so much the task force, it's who will be on it. Some health officials who formerly worked in the government say that they are worried that RFK Jr. will be bringing in people who are extremely biased, who don't have accepted scientific credentials, who may have conflicts of interest. If you remember back in June, Kennedy got rid of all of the members of a federal committee of independent vaccine advisors and then replaced him with his own appointees, most of whom have criticized COVID vaccine policies. Weeks later, that committee said that they were going to review the cumulative health effects of the entire childhood vaccination schedule, which includes more than a dozen routine immunizations, many required by states to attend public school for things like measles, mumps, and rubella, and polio. During his Senate confirmation hearing, Kennedy said that he supports the childhood immunization schedule, but he has previously blasted the schedule as overburdened with too many shots and threatening to cause chronic disease. Also on a note, studies have found that the cumulative effects of the childhood immunization schedule are safe, and vaccines do undergo rigorous safety testing before they are licensed by the FDA. All right, heading overseas from Mo News, Southern Europe battling wildfires fueled by historic heat and now on track for its worst wildfire season on record. And this is in countries like France, Spain, Portugal, and Greece. In Spain, firefighters have been working to tame the fires for over a week. Temperatures hit 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Thousands of people have been evacuated and dozens of homes have been destroyed because of those fires. Authorities say 199 wildfires have destroyed nearly 250,000 acres nationwide in Spain this year. That is double last year's entire total. Arson's been suspected in several of the fires, and over 1 million acres have been burned across the European Union. France, Greece, and Portugal are also fighting fires, which means that firefighters are stretched thin across southern Europe. Now, the dangerous heat in the region could last through Monday. Now, as Moshe and I have reported, this all comes as Europeans from the UK to France have been debating whether it's time to install more air conditioning, kind of like how we have throughout most of the United States. But in Europe, there is still a stigma around it. But no air conditioning with temperatures in the 90s and hundreds has the potential to be very dangerous. All right, now back to the economy. From NBC News, one group struggling in a slowing job market, young men with college degrees. Men ages 23 to 30 with bachelor's degrees are seeing nearly double the unemployment rates as their female counterparts. For the group of men, the unemployment rate has climbed to 6% in recent months, while young women with college degrees have a 3.5% unemployment rate, and it's also higher than the national average. So this marks a reversal of a decades-long trend where a bachelor's degree gave men an edge. Now, according to this data, young men with a college degree are actually more likely to be unemployed than those who only have a high school diploma. Now, it's partly due to the changing labor market. Industries where hiring is still strong, like healthcare, education, and hospitality, are sectors that are very much dominated by women. Meanwhile, male-dominated fields like tech and manufacturing have really been hit hard in the current job market. Tech companies have laid off more than 100,000 workers so far this year, and manufacturing lost about 11,000 jobs in July alone. So NBC talked to one young male. He said he graduated with a computer science bachelor's degree from the Illinois Institute of Technology. And 2 years later, he is unemployed and living with his parents in the Chicago suburbs. He's applied for more than 900 jobs, from secretary positions to a role at a prison, and he's only gotten a handful of interviews. The struggles do vary by industry, so some experts are calling for more programs to encourage men to go into healthcare and break down the gender stereotypes around certain career paths, similar to efforts to encourage women to go into construction. But this is definitely a story to watch, as a lot of young people, particularly young men, did everything right, so to speak. They went to college, graduated, went into STEM and other fields that were so in demand just a few years ago, and now find themselves without work. And this has ripple effects throughout the economy as young people are delaying buying homes, getting married, and starting families. From ESPN, Venus Williams will make her return to Grand Slam tennis at the U.S. Open after a 2-year absence. She got a wild card invitation this week to compete in singles at Flushing Meadows. She is 45 years old. She will be the oldest entrant in singles at the tournament since Renee Richards was 47 back in 1981. That is according to the International Tennis Federation. Williams already had been given a wild card entry by the U.S. Tennis Association for next week's mixed doubles competition. Singles matches begin on August 24th. Williams last participated in a Grand Slam tournament at the 2023 U.S. Open. She lost in the first round. She has not won a singles match there since 2019. She returned to competitive tennis in July. She was away from the sport for more than a year. She had a few injuries. She won one match at the DC Open. Then she was knocked out in the first round in Cincinnati last week. But in Washington, she became the oldest woman to win a tour-level singles match since Martina Navratilova was 47 at Wimbledon back in 2004. And finally, what I have been obsessing over, Taylor Swift making a very rare podcast appearance. She announced her upcoming album on a podcast co-hosted by her boyfriend, the NFL player Travis Kelce, and his brother Jason Kelce. So from the New Heights podcast, we learn the name of Taylor Swift's 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl. It will be released on October 3rd. I listened to every minute of the 2-hour and 4-minute interview in which fans got to hear straight from Taylor Swift. She does tend to communicate directly with her fans through posts on social media instead of doing traditional interviews. So a bunch of takeaways here. The Life of a Showgirl is produced by Swift, Max Martin, and Shellback. They worked with her on Red and 1989, albums that are considered some of her biggest hits. Sabrina Carpenter, as expected, will be featured on the album's title track. She said this album will be very upbeat, a lot of energy, and it'll be focused on what was going on behind the scenes during her recent Eras tour. Now, that lasted 21 months. She did 150 shows on 5 continents. Here is a bit of her announcement.
This is my brand new album.
What is the theme of the album, if you would describe it as one theme, if that's possible?
I would say it's everything that was going on behind the curtain.
Okay. And then what are the goals? You said something like, what would be like your main goals with this album?
My main goals were melodies that were so infectious that you're almost angry at it. And lyrics that are just as vivid, but crisp and focused and completely intentional.
Check.
Her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, said he's listened to the album. He says it is high energy and going to make you dance. So if you're wondering how Swift found the time to do this, in the middle of the Eras tour, she said in between shows and in between locations, she would actually fly to Sweden for a couple of days. That's where her producers were located. She also talked about buying her masters back. For years, she had been re-recording her earliest albums and then re-releasing them as Taylor's version because she didn't actually own their master recordings. She said she had sent her mom and brother to negotiate with Shamrock Capital, which had owned the masters. And when her mom called to tell her that they agreed to sell her the music back, she really said she just got so emotional because it was something that she thought about every day. She also talked about how she handles negative headlines and comments on social media. Bottom line, she doesn't. She said she's totally detached herself from social media and turned her comments off on Instagram about 10 years ago. She says she has not looked back. Here is a bit more from the interview.
Friends or acquaintances or people were like, they'll see one comment they don't like,
right,
and it will ruin their day. It'll ruin their night. And I just want to say to them, you should think of your energy as if it's expensive, as if it's like a luxury item. Not everyone can afford it.
Yep.
Not everyone has invested in you in order to be able to have the capital for you to care about this.
Right.
It's like what you spend your energy on, that's the day.
Great advice, whether you're a famous person or not. Now, as a big Taylor Swift fan, I really enjoyed the interview. If you're a fan of hers, I highly recommend. She was relaxed and casual, and you could also get a glimpse into her relationship with Travis Kelce, and they were pretty cute. It is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating. Moshe is going to be watching the Taylor Swift interview. I am watching Yellowstone. I actually haven't seen it. I figured it was time. I watched the first episode earlier this week. My husband said it's the slowest of the episodes, and I thought it was pretty good. Also want to mention, if you're looking for something to watch in person, Moshe and I are playing in the Artists and Writers softball game. It's a charity game in East Hampton on Saturday. So if you're around and in the area, come say hi. I can't promise that I'm actually going to play. I did not play last year. I hadn't picked up a baseball bat in about 30 years. And so there was a little bit of practice beforehand. I did not even make contact with the ball when I was up at bat. And so they didn't put me in, which is fine. It was still a lot of fun. As for what we are reading, Moshe will be reading The Gods of New York, Egotists, Idealists, Opportunists, and the Birth of the Modern City from 1986 to 1990. It's by Jonathan Mahler. And I might pick up Atmosphere. It's from Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I love. Our producer, Sari, who has been on this podcast before, recommended it. She said it is a beautiful love story. She's also been learning a lot about NASA. And a lot of our premium members over on our premium Slack channel told us that this is what they are reading as well. All right, as for what we are eating, Moshe is eating Mama's 2 pizza. That's TOO. It's in the West Village. Sam, one of our producers, is eating pickle-flavored ice cream from Salt and Straw in Manhattan. There's 2 Manhattan locations, but this is an ice cream company that's based in Portland. And I mentioned it because you can also order online, and it looks insanely good. All right, that is a wrap for me. Thank you guys for listening to the Mo News podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store. Those reviews really help. For the latest on the Russia summit and all other news throughout the day, make sure to check out the Mo News Instagram account at Moshe, Mosheh. Lots of exciting stuff going on. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Listen to Mo News.